So I'll give a definition of the overself. The overself, this is page 116. The overself is consciously divine and can never lose its really universal nature any more than the sun ray can lose its real nature as light, divided a million fold, though the letter be. So if we skip here and come here, it says, from the human standpoint, the overself is the deeper layer of mind where man can become conscious of God. So that's why I was talking about the overself. From our point of view, you are in a deeper layer of the mind or reality where you have now become conscious of God. It is the timeless, spaceless immanence of the universal being in a particular center. So now it means when we start to talk about the overself, the next word that comes into play is consciousness. So the question will be, why am I myself and not someone else? This is an important question which can find a final answer only when we can penetrate into the consciousness of the overself. When you are now consciousness, when you are aware of yourself, which projected this particular I. I is when how you refer to yourself into incarnation. For an entire tangle of evolutionary necessity and karmatic history will need to be unveiled, so that's not necessary. So now when we talk about overself, then we talk about consciousness or awareness of your overself, yourself that live beyond your flesh, because that self existed, has a history before you were born, and it will also exist in this body, in your body, and it will also continue to carry the history of your life after you died and left this body. That's why it also talks about incarnation. So basically, as a spirit, you are free, and then you got trapped in that body that you call yourself, right? You identify yourself with, and then that's incarnation. And then you get out of it when you die, or you get out of it when you sleep and you are dreaming. You enter into the dream world or into other heavens or other sphere or realms. So now the thing that we want to concentrate in is the division between the physical you and this conscious self, because there is a war between the two. So like I said, the overself exists in the body before it entered your body and after. So now the overself, this is page 117. Now the overself's original consciousness or existence is a single and undifferentiated one. So the overself is an immortal, or it's a god. It doesn't die. This means that its only awareness is of existence. So its only awareness is that it's always living. It was living before it was born. It's in your body right now. It's still existing, and after it exits your body is still alive. So that's why the overself original existence it's only awareness of its existence, but not a personal existence. So now your the I that you know, yourself, consists of your life experience. You're born to this woman, to this man, you grew up, you went to your life experience up to now. You don't know what tomorrow holds, you don't know next year. You only know the years that you will have lived in the earth. That's the personal existence of the other you, which you know. But the overself is timeless. It is a it is conscious yet not self-conscious in space and time. So the personal existence, we exist in space and time. We die. Time is tied to death and sin. But such a consciousness in is in a certain sense equivalent to having no consciousness at all. For existence can only begin when we can begin to distinguish between something that is, be it our own self or an object, from something that is not. So if you skip there and say that self-awareness can arise only when there is awareness of a contrast. So now you are being driven to be self-aware, to know your over self. And that self-awareness can only arise or drive you to differentiate between the two you, the over self you and the personal existing you, that the body that you know. So now you are being driven, or the word that we have is the awareness of a contrast between the two you. So now you became aware of the existence, or you are being driven to become aware of the existence of anything only in and by becoming aware of that which is not at the same time, at the same moment. For unless we can distinguish it in this way, we cannot distinguish it at all. Now, the very first of such contrast must necessarily be that which exists between the self and what lies outside it. So the outside it is what you see. The self is what you are not aware of. That is to say, the opposition of the idea of not me must arise if the mind is to become aware of the idea of me. If there are no second thing, there must be no conscious existence for me. I think I don't want to read a lot, so I'll just stop it there. So when I was undergoing the same process you are going through, this is the verse that I was given to recite when I was being covenanted. John chapter 21 verse 18. So Jesus asked a third time. Let me start it somewhere. For me, this was the scripture which had opened for me. But what I want for you to relate to you is here Jesus had died and risen from the grave, and he's asking Simon Peter, or Simeon, son of Jonas, if he loves him. And then he's being asked to feed the sheep. So once you become self-aware, then you have to put in some work that will validate your over self, or the awareness of your over self, just like we put in the work for our physical us. So the verse that I wanted to read for you is John chapter chapter 21, verse 18. Verily, verily, I say unto you, when thou wast young, you girded yourself, unoyipoha, uyitamaletheka, and walked whither thou wouldest. So unoyipoha letheka and woya gongwe le gongwe ko batlang teng, uyitaola. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy arms, and another shall gird thee and carry thee, whether thou shalt not, thou shouldest not. This spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said unto Peter, follow me. Then Peter, turning about, sees the discipline whom Jesus loved following him, which also leaned on his breast at supper, and said, Lord, which is he that betrays thee? So now, when you are being identified to be self-aware, there is doubt. So Peter is being asked if he loves the author, the creator of the Spirit, and who is the Christ. And he said, oh Lord, I love you. I really love you. You know that I love you. He said, Lord, you know that I love thee. Feed my sheep. And then he said, do you love me again? And then he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee, says Peter. And then he said, okay, if you love me, then your days of your youth will be over, where you had the power to command yourself and take yourself wherever you wanted, did whatever you wanted. Now, if you get into covenant to identify yourself with the overself, the second you, then you'll be like an old man. You'll be that diner. Thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall lift you and carry thee where thou should not. Okay, let me read this with another kind of English. Okay, it says, truly, truly, I tell you, when you were young, you dressed yourself and walked where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. So you see, now this is the death, or should I say surrendering of the physical you. So now you'll be that diner that is just standing there, dead stop, on the pothole, lifted with, supported from left center with every jack and every stick and every brick. And another man, because now you'll be old, another man will be driving you. So it says, when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said to this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter will glorify God. And after he had said this, he told Peter, follow me. So what does follow me mean? It means whoever you will be driven, you will be sitting in that Volvo, but you'll be more like a passenger who had agreed to follow. You'll be driven wherever you are. You are to go. So that's the concept of the overself that you have to transition into. But the problem is the overself and the physical self do not exist 50-50. Right now, your physical self is existing possibly 90, and your overself is just existing possibly 10%, or maybe 80-20, maybe 70-30. But the moment the overself emerge and you covenant and say, Lord, I love you, like Peter said, like I said, then you have to follow. Then you have to act, you become the physical, you become old. It means the physical you have to surrender. You have to be on the jacks like a diner. The only thing you do is to stretch your hands so that someone will dress you. And dressing on its own, remember in that dream you were undressing and someone was dressing you with a towel. Now here you will be dressed, and dressing means it's an element of righteousness, which means you will be clothed with goodness, which will be the work of God that is worthy. The virtue of the overself, the works, the good works, the righteous work, the moral standard or existence or values of the overself. And that overself, now you become led by the Spirit. So you could only follow. So which means your time is up. Pray so that it happens smoothly. Pray so that you are able to transition, because it's a war. And that war, something has to die. So if you fail to transition, the transition on its own, it means the physical you have to die or surrender. You can do it while existing. Also swear like what we hit but basically in another lessons or another groups we say you are being upgraded like a computer where you remove a software, let's say Windows 7, and you put in Windows 10 or Windows 11. You are being upgraded in simple terms. Okay, I hope it makes sense. I hope I haven't complicated it a lot.